The blueprint Valerie Martinez ran her fingers across the recycled silver pendant, feeling every curve and imperfection that made it uniquely beautiful. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows of her modest apartment, catching on the scattered pieces of her latest jewelry collection. Small mountains of ethically sourced materials, reclaimed metals, sustainable gems, and repurposed watch parts covered her workspace. "What do you think?" she asked, holding up the pendant to Owen, who leaned against the doorframe with 2 mugs of tea. "It's stunning," he replied, setting her mug on the only clear spot on her desk. Owen Bennett had been her rock for the past 3 years. A software engineer by profession, but an artist at heart who understood her creative process better than anyone. His dark curls fell over thoughtful eyes as he examined her work. "The way you've incorporated those old watch gears gives it this amazing steampunk meets nature vibe." Valerie smiled, attaching the pendant to a chain made from melted-down silverware. Terra Firma Designs, her sustainable jewelry brand, was more than a business idea. It was the culmination of her environmental science degree and artistic passion. For 2 years, she'd been developing techniques to transform discarded metals into wearable art, each piece telling a story of rebirth and sustainability. "The pop-up market is in 6 weeks," she said, anxiety creeping into her voice. "Do you really think people will pay premium prices for recycled jewelry?" Owen took her hands in his, careful of the silver dust coating her fingertips. "Val, what you're doing isn't just making jewelry. You're creating a movement. Each piece comes with a story about where the materials came from and how many resources were saved by recycling." His confidence in her vision never wavered. "That's worth every penny." Later that evening, they arrived at her parents' home for the monthly Martinez family dinner. The familiar scent of her mother's enchiladas filled the air as Valerie helped set the table, her mind still buzzing with business plans. "Someone's distracted," teased her father Hector as he poured wine. "Is it that jewelry thing again?" "It's not just a thing, Dad," Valerie corrected gently. "I've finally figured out the acid bath formula that removes tarnish without using harmful chemicals. And I've settled on a name, Terra Firma Designs. I've even designed the logo." She pulled out her phone to show the earthy, elegant design Owen had helped her finalize. Her mother, Elena, squeezed her shoulder supportively. "It's beautiful, mija. I'm so proud of you for following your passion." From across the room, Valerie's older brother Dominic watched silently. At 34, he was the practical one, the business school graduate whose consulting firm had been struggling since losing a major client last year. His expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes as he examined the logo. "Interesting concept," he finally commented, swirling his wine. "But isn't the sustainable jewelry market already saturated? What's your unique selling proposition?" Owen stepped in before Valerie could respond. Her proprietary metal reclamation process. "She's developed a method that preserves more of the original character of the recycled pieces while maintaining structural integrity." Dominic raised an eyebrow. "Sounds technical. Have you protected that process legally?" "I'm working on it," Valerie said, though the thought had barely crossed her mind. Intellectual property protection seemed like a concern for established businesses, not her fledgling operation. "You should prioritize that," Dominic advised, his tone suddenly businesslike. "I've seen too many startups lose their edge because they didn't protect their innovations." The conversation shifted to other topics, but later, as Owen drove them home, he brought up Dominic's point. "Your brother might be onto something about legal protection," he said carefully. "I have a friend from college who specializes in IP law. Maybe we should talk to her?" Valerie sighed. "That sounds expensive. I'm trying to put everything into production right now." Owen was quiet for a moment. What if I covered the initial consultation as an early birthday present? I believe in terra firma, Val. I want to make sure it's protected." She looked at him. This man who supported her dreams as if they were his own, and felt a surge of gratitude. "You would do that?" "In a heartbeat," he replied without hesitation. "This isn't just your dream anymore. I'm invested too. Emotionally, not just financially," he added with a smile. 2 weeks later, Valerie signed the last document securing a provisional patent for her metal reclamation process and trademark protection for Terra Firma Designs. Owen's birthday gift had expanded into a comprehensive legal package that protected every aspect of her business. "I can't believe we just did that," she said, staring at the folder of legal documents. "It feels so official now." "It was always official," Owen replied, pulling her close. "Now it's just protected." Little did they know how valuable that protection would soon become. The heist, the spring artisan market, bustled with activity as Valerie arranged the last of her terra firma pieces on her reclaimed wood display. After months of preparation, her sustainable jewelry collection was finally ready for public debut. Owen helped adjust the lighting, making sure each recycled metal creation caught the eye of passing shoppers. "Perfect timing," Valerie whispered, nodding toward a local blogger who had promised to feature sustainable businesses. Everything has to be perfect. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "So proud of you today. Dominic said he can't make it. Important business meeting. But we'll be there in an hour. Love you." Valerie tried to ignore the twinge of disappointment. Dominic had been unusually distant these past few weeks, canceling their coffee meetups and responding to texts with uncharacteristic brevity. Still, today wasn't about family dynamics. It was about launching her dream. The market proved more successful than she'd dared hope. By mid-afternoon, she'd sold nearly half her inventory and collected contact information from 3 boutiques interested in carrying her line. Her parents beamed with pride as they watched her wrap purchases in recycled paper packaging. "This is just the beginning," Owen said, squeezing her hand during a quiet moment. That evening, exhausted but elated, Valerie scrolled through social media to post highlights from her successful launch. Her finger froze mid-scroll. There, prominently displayed in her feed, was an advertisement that made her stomach drop. "Introducing Terra Design Studio, sustainable luxury for the conscious consumer." The logo was different, sleeker, more corporate, but the products displayed looked disturbingly similar to her own designs. She clicked through to the profile with trembling fingers and found professional photos showcasing jewelry made with innovative recycled metal techniques, and there, smiling confidently in the company profile picture, stood Dominic. "No," she whispered, the phone nearly slipping from her grasp. He wouldn't. But as she scrolled further, the evidence became undeniable. Dominic had launched a business virtually identical to hers, down to the metal reclamation technique she'd spent years perfecting. The only significant difference was scale. His operation appeared far larger, with a sleek website and corporate backing. "Owen," she called, her voice cracking. "Look at this." Owen's expression darkened as he examined the profile. "That explains the sudden business meetings and canceled plans. He's been building this behind your back." The betrayal cut deeper than Valerie could have imagined. The brother who had sat at their family dinner, who had specifically asked about her legal protections while planning to steal her concept. It was unfathomable. "Call him," Owen urged. "Confront him now before this goes any further." With shaking hands, Valerie dialed. Dominic answered on the 4th ring, his voice casual. "Hey, Val, how was the market?" "How could you?" she demanded, words tumbling out before she could temper them with diplomacy. "Terra Designs? Recycled metal jewelry? You stole my entire business model." A pause. "Business inspiration happens all the time, Val. I saw market potential and moved on it." "That's just entrepreneurship." "Entrepreneurship? You took my techniques. Techniques I specifically talked about at dinner. You even used part of my business name." Dominic's voice cooled. "Look, I registered Terra Design Studio legally. I've invested considerable capital and brought on partners. There's plenty of room in the market for both of us, though I should mention we've already secured contracts with 3 national retailers." The calculated precision of his betrayal left Valerie breathless. This hadn't been impulsive. He'd been planning this takeover while watching her pour her heart into terra firma. "You're my brother," she whispered. "How could you do this to me?" "It's not personal, Val, it's business. Maybe you should have moved faster." The line went dead, leaving Valerie staring at Owen with tears streaming down her face. The next morning brought another shock. Their parents called, confused and distressed. "Dominic showed us his new business venture," her mother explained hesitantly. He says it's completely different from yours, just in the same industry. He wants us to attend his launch party next week. And will you? Valerie asked, the hurt evident in her voice. Her father intervened. We don't want to be caught in the middle. He's our son, you're our daughter. Can't you both just what, Dad? Share the idea he stole from me? Pretend he didn't betray me? The conversation ended awkwardly, with promises to talk more later. Valerie felt as if her world was collapsing, her business threatened before it truly began, her family relationship strained by her brother's betrayal. Owen found her sitting motionless at her workbench, tools untouched. I've been thinking, he said quietly. Remember those legal documents we filed? She looked up, eyes red-rimmed. What good are they now? He's already launched. He has investors and retail contracts. But he doesn't have the legal right to your proprietary process or anything close to your trademarked name, Owen pointed out. We need to talk to Naomi again. Naomi Singh, the intellectual property lawyer who had handled their filings, listened gravely to their situation the following day. After examining both Terra Firma's documents and Terra Design Studios' public materials, she leaned back in her chair. Your brother made a critical error, she said, a small smile forming. He assumed you wouldn't have protected your intellectual property yet, and he moved too quickly. The techniques he's advertising infringe on your provisional patent, and the name similarity creates trademark confusion. She tapped a folder on her desk. We have grounds for immediate legal action. What does that mean exactly? Valerie asked, hope flickering for the first time in days. It means, Owen said, taking her hand, that your brother is about to learn a very expensive lesson about stealing ideas. Naomi nodded. I'll draft a cease and desist letter today. This isn't just about stopping him. It's about establishing that Terra Firma Designs is the legitimate business with legal standing. As they left the office, Valerie felt conflicted emotions churning within her, vindication mixed with sadness that it had come to this. Family relationships would be damaged, perhaps irrevocably. I hate this, she admitted to Owen, but I can't let him take everything I've worked for. Owen pulled her close. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones we never saw coming. But you're not fighting alone. The fine print. The cease and desist letter landed on Dominic's desk exactly 1 week after Valerie discovered his deception. Naomi had crafted a document that was both legally intimidating and unambiguous. Terra Design Studio was in direct violation of Terra Firma's intellectual property rights, including the registered trademark and provisional patent for the metal reclamation process. Dominic's response came not through a phone call or legal representative, but by storming into Valerie's apartment that evening, waving the letter. What the hell is this? He demanded as Owen moved protectively to Valerie's side. You're threatening legal action against your own brother? Valerie stood her ground. You stole my business, Dominic. My designs, my techniques, everything I've been working toward for years. I developed these designs independently, he insisted, though his eyes flickered with uncertainty when he saw the dated documentation Valerie placed on the coffee table. These filings predate your launch by nearly 4 months, she said quietly. The metal reclamation process is protected by provisional patent. The Terra Firma name and logo are trademarked. Even your name creates marketplace confusion, which is specifically prohibited under trademark law. Dominic's face paled slightly as he leafed through the documents, his consulting background enough to recognize their legitimacy. You never mentioned filing these. You never mentioned planning to steal my business, Valerie countered. The siblings stared at each other across a chasm of broken trust. Finally, Dominic's business instincts seemed to override his indignation. What exactly do you want? He asked, his voice clipped. Naomi had prepared them for this question. Terra Design Studio needs to cease operations immediately. All products using my patented techniques must be withdrawn from the market. You'll need to issue a public statement acknowledging Terra Firma Designs as the original and legitimate business. Dominic laughed bitterly. You're asking me to destroy everything I've built. I have investors, Valerie, contracts, people depending on this venture. You built it on stolen intellectual property, Owen interjected, Those investors would be very interested to learn that fact. The implication hung heavily in the air. Securities fraud wasn't just a civil matter. It had criminal implications. You'd do that to me? Dominic asked, genuine shock in his voice. Risk sending your own brother to jail? Valerie felt tears threatening, but held them back. I don't want that. I never wanted any of this. But you didn't leave me much choice, Dom. A tense silence followed before Dominic finally spoke, his voice hollow. I'll need time to unwind operations, to explain to investors. You have 5 business days, Valerie said, repeating Naomi's recommended timeline. After that, we proceed with the lawsuit. After Dominic left, Valerie collapsed onto the couch, the confrontation having drained her completely. That was horrible, she whispered as Owen wrapped his arms around her. I know, he murmured into her hair. But you stood up for yourself, for everything you've worked for. The following days brought a flurry of complicated emotions and logistics. Dominic formally announced Terra Design Studios' closure, citing unforeseen intellectual property conflicts without directly acknowledging terra firma. Their parents called, distressed by the family fracture. Your brother is devastated, her mother said. His investors are furious. Couldn't you have found another way? The implied blame stung. He stole my business, Mom. What was I supposed to do? Family should come first, her father insisted. Before business, before money? This wasn't about money, Valerie tried to explain. This was about years of work, about my dream. Would you expect me to just give that up because he's my brother? The conversation ended in an uncomfortable stalemate. That night, Valerie wept in Owen's arms, mourning the family harmony that seemed irretrievably lost. Maybe they're right, she said through tears. Maybe I should have found another way. Owen gently tilted her face toward his. You didn't create this situation. You just refused to be victimized by it. That's not wrong, Val. 3 days later, Naomi forwarded an email from Dominic's hastily hired attorney. Terra Design Studio would cease all operations and destroy existing inventory. Additionally, Dominic would sign a non-compete agreement specific to recycled metal jewelry for 3 years. This is a complete surrender, Naomi explained over the phone. Legally speaking, you've won. Yet victory felt hollow as Valerie faced the reality of fractured family relationships. Her parents remained coolly civil, caught between their children. Dominic himself had stopped speaking to her entirely. Winning the legal battle was the easy part, she confessed to Owen as they walked through the park that weekend. Rebuilding my family might be impossible. Owen squeezed her hand. Healing takes time, and truth eventually surfaces. Your parents will understand someday. And Dominic? That's up to him, Owen answered honestly. But you did the right thing, Val. You protected what's yours. She nodded slowly, drawing strength from his unwavering support. The path ahead would be difficult, but terra firma, true to its name, now stood on solid ground. The reconstruction. The autumn air carried a crisp energy as Valerie unlocked the door to her new studio space. 3 months after the legal confrontation with Dominic, Terra Firma Designs had evolved from a home workspace operation to a legitimate small business with its own storefront and production area. I still can't believe this is happening, she said, watching as Owen helped the delivery crew position her new workbenches, the space, a converted industrial loft with exposed brick and generous natural light, embodied everything she'd envisioned for terra firma. The front would serve as a gallery-style retail area, while the back housed production equipment, including the specialized acid bath station for her patented metal reclamation process. Believe it, Owen said, unboxing her tools. This is what vindication looks like. The cease and desist had worked precisely as intended. Dominic had dismantled Terra Design Studio, and the vacuum created by his abrupt market exit had actually accelerated interest in Valerie's authentic brand. 3 of the retailers who had initially contracted with Dominic now carried terra firma pieces, appreciating the legitimacy of her operation and the story behind her creations. Success, however, couldn't fully heal the family rift. Sunday dinners had become tense affairs, with Dominic conspicuously absent and her parents carefully avoiding any mention of either sibling's business ventures. The unspoken accusation lingered. that Valerie had chosen business over family loyalty. "Ms. Martinez?" The contractor interrupted her thoughts. "We need your approval on the display case placement." Focusing on the task at hand, Valerie pushed family concerns aside. Today was about building her future, not dwelling on painful recent history. By late afternoon, the space had transformed into a functional studio. Valerie stood in the center, taking it all in, when her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Your father and I would like to stop by your new place. Are you there now?" She hesitated before responding. Her parents had been supportive in theory, but had yet to visit the studio or show much enthusiasm for her expanding business. Still, their interest felt like a potential olive branch. "Yes, I'm here setting up. You're welcome to come by." 30 minutes later, Elena and Hector Martinez cautiously entered the studio, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and lingering discomfort. "This is impressive," her father admitted, looking around at the professional setup. "Much bigger than I expected." "The retail area will open next month," Valerie explained, guiding them through the space. "For now, we're focusing on production for the holiday season." Her mother ran a hand over one of the display cases. "Dominic came by the house yesterday," she said suddenly. "He's taken a consulting position in Chicago. Leaves next week." The news landed like a stone in Valerie's stomach. Despite everything, the thought of her brother moving across the country created a hollow feeling she hadn't anticipated. "I see," was all she managed to say. Her father cleared his throat uncomfortably. "He asked us to give you this." He extended an envelope with Valerie's name written in Dominic's distinctive handwriting. Alone that evening, after her parents' awkward but somewhat healing visit, Valerie finally gathered the courage to open Dominic's letter. Owen sat beside her, a silent source of strength. "Dear Valerie," she read aloud, voice unsteady, "I owe you an apology that I'm not brave enough to deliver in person. What I did was unforgivable. I saw your success coming when mine was falling apart, and instead of supporting you, I tried to steal what you'd created. The legal consequences were deserved, but I regret most the damage to our relationship. I'm leaving for Chicago to start fresh, away from the mess I've made. The trust fund grandfather left me, I've transferred half to your business account. It won't repair what I broke, but maybe it will help build what's rightfully yours. I'm sorry. Dominic." Tears flowed freely as Valerie lowered the letter. "I don't want his money," she whispered. "Maybe it's not about the money," Owen suggested gently. "Maybe it's the only way he knows to make amends." The following week brought the studio's quiet transformation into a functioning business. Valerie hired 2 part-time artisans to help with production, taught them her techniques, and finalized the holiday collection. Throughout it all, Dominic's letter remained on her desk, a complicated reminder of betrayal, consequences, and perhaps the beginning of redemption. On the day before Dominic's scheduled departure, Valerie finally made a decision. She found him packing the last of his apartment, boxes stacked in organized precision. "Val," he said, genuine surprise in his voice as he opened the door. "I didn't expect to see you." "I got your letter," she said simply. "And the money," he nodded, unable to meet her eyes. "It seemed right. I'm returning half of it," she continued, handing him an envelope. "Not because I don't need it. I do. But because I want whatever healing happens between us to be about more than financial compensation." For the first time in months, Dominic looked directly at her. "I don't deserve that consideration." "Probably not," she agreed candidly. "But family is complicated. And despite everything, you're still my brother." They didn't embrace or fully reconcile, but something shifted in that moment. A tiny fissure in the wall between them that might someday allow for rebuilding. As Valerie left, Dominic called after her. "The business, it's really taking off, isn't it?" She paused, turning back. "Yes, it is." "Good," he said with what appeared to be genuine sincerity. "That's good, Val." Back at the studio, Owen was finishing the installation of security cameras when she returned. "How did it go?" he asked, cautiously. "It was a start," she replied, feeling both emotionally drained and somehow lighter. "Not forgiveness exactly, but a beginning." Owen nodded in understanding. then gestured toward the front of the studio where a professional signwriter was adding the finishing touch. The Terra Firma Designs logo emblazoned in gold leaf on the front window. "What do you think?" he asked. Valerie stood beside him, watching her vision materialize in gleaming letters. "I think we're building something that will last," she said, leaning into his embrace. "Something solid. Terra firma." The foundation 1 year later, Valerie stood in the expanded Terra Firma design studio, watching as photographers captured images of her latest collection for a feature in Sustainable Style magazine. The journey from betrayal to thriving business had been arduous but transformative, with each challenge ultimately strengthening both her company and her character. "Can we get a shot of you at the workbench?" the photographer called. "The article focuses on the artisan behind the brand." As Valerie positioned herself at her favorite workstation, now one of 5 in the busy studio, she caught Owen's eye across the room. He gave her a subtle thumbs up, his pride evident even as he tried to stay out of the camera's frame. The past year had brought remarkable growth. Terra Firma now employed 7 artisans, all trained in Valerie's patented techniques, and the jewelry appeared in boutiques across the country. The sustainable business model had gained attention from environmental publications, and her commitment to ethical sourcing had attracted a devoted customer base willing to pay premium prices for jewelry with meaning. "That's perfect," the photographer said, reviewing the images. "The magazine editor is particularly interested in your metal reclamation process." She called it revolutionary. Valerie smiled, remembering the late nights of experimentation that had led to that innovation, and how close she'd come to losing it to her brother's betrayal. "The process is important, but it's the story behind each piece that matters most to me," she explained. "Every item carries history that deserves to be honored, not discarded." After the photo shoot concluded, Valerie found Owen waiting in her office with a small gift box. "What's this for?" she asked, taking the perfectly wrapped package. "1 year since you signed the lease on this space," he explained. "1 year since you rebuilt everything from the ground up. It deserved commemorating." Inside the box lay a delicate chain bearing a pendant unlike any she'd created, a miniature replica of her studio building crafted in reclaimed silver, with tiny diamonds representing the windows. "Owen," she whispered, touching the intricate details. "You made this?" He nodded, suddenly shy. "I've been taking metalworking classes for months. Wanted to surprise you." The gesture moved her deeply. This man who had supported her dream had now learned her craft, connecting himself to her passion in yet another meaningful way. "It's perfect," she said, turning so he could fasten it around her neck. "Thank you." Later that evening, they attended the grand opening of a new gallery showcasing sustainable art, including a special display of Terra Firma's most innovative pieces. As they circulated among potential clients and fellow artists, Valerie was surprised to see her parents enter, looking somewhat out of place but determined. "Mom, Dad," she greeted them, genuinely pleased by their presence. "I didn't know you were coming." "We wouldn't miss it," her mother said, embracing her. "We're so proud of what you've accomplished, mija." Her father, less demonstrative but equally sincere, nodded in agreement. "The business is impressive. Very impressive." Their relationship had gradually improved over the months, healing incrementally as her parents came to fully understand the significance of what Dominic had done and the legitimacy of her response. They still maintained contact with Dominic in Chicago, but no longer pressured Valerie to fully reconcile before she was ready. "Have you heard from Dom recently?" she asked carefully, as Owen guided her father toward the Terra Firma display. Elena hesitated. "He's doing well with the consulting firm. Mentioned he might visit next month." She searched Valerie's face. "Would that be okay? If he wanted to see the studio?" Valerie considered the question honestly. The pain of betrayal had dulled, replaced by a cautious openness to rebuilding some version of their sibling relationship. "Yes," she decided. "I think that would be okay." As the evening wound down, Owen pulled Valerie onto the small gallery balcony overlooking the city lights. The spring air carried the scent of possibility, of new beginnings. "I've been thinking," he said, uncharacteristically nervous. About foundations, she raised an eyebrow. Foundations? Terra firma means solid earth, he explained. You named your business that because you wanted to build something lasting, something true. He took her hands in his. I've been thinking about our foundation, yours and mine. With a fluid movement, he knelt before her, producing a ring that caught the moonlight, a band of reclaimed gold supporting not a traditional diamond, but a mosaic of tiny repurposed gemstones forming a perfect circle. Valerie Martinez, he said, voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. You've shown me what it means to fight for your dreams, to rebuild after betrayal, to stand your ground when it matters most. I want to build a life with you on that same solid foundation. Will you marry me? Tears blurred her vision as she nodded, words momentarily beyond reach. When he slipped the ring onto her finger, she finally found her voice again. It's beautiful, she whispered, examining the intricate metalwork. You designed this? With a little help from your head artisan, he admitted. Each stone comes from a different piece of jewelry that held meaning for us. The blue sapphire from the earrings I gave you on our first anniversary, the tiny emerald from the bracelet you wore when we signed your first retail contract. The thoughtfulness of the gesture overwhelmed her. This was love expressed in the language she understood best, sustainable, meaningful, built from history, yet looking toward the future. As they returned to the gallery, hand in hand, Valerie caught sight of their reflection in a decorative mirror, two people who had weathered betrayal and emerged stronger, their bond tempered by adversity rather than broken by it. Terra firma, she murmured. Squeezing Owen's hand, he returned the pressure. The most solid ground there is. In that moment, surrounded by the physical manifestation of her creative vision and wearing the promise of a shared future, Valerie understood that true success wasn't measured in sales figures or magazine features. It lay in building something authentic, whether a business or a relationship, on a foundation strong enough to withstand whatever storms might come. The business her brother had tried to steal had become something greater than she'd initially imagined. And the love that had supported her through that betrayal had deepened into a partnership that would sustain whatever challenges lay ahead. Some foundations, once properly laid, could never be shaken.